Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and we are joined by an awesome entrepreneur here in today's episode that I'm so excited to tap into his experiences, his perspectives, his discipline, what motivates him, because he is someone who I think embodies the excitement of what it means to be an entrepreneur and to interact with and serve others. So let me tell you about today's guest. His name is Josiah Kowles. Josiah is driven by a passion for innovation and creating tangible, positive change. Josiah is the co-founder and CEO of Kudo, which is a groundbreaking community hub for thoughtful dialogue. Gosh, do we need more of that in society and in business? And pursuing studies in economics at Penn State University. Josiah's journey is marked by a diverse range of experiences. He served in both the Army and the Navy. I've already thanked him for his service. I'm so excited to tap into all the things that have built him into the person and the entrepreneur that he is. He brings a unique perspective shaped by his military background. His dedication to innovation and fostering meaningful connections drives his work at Kudo, where he empowers individuals to share their voices and perspectives. I'm excited to dive into his journey today, so I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Josiah Kowles. All right, Josiah, we are so very excited to have you here on the show. First things first, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, and shout out to your team for finding me and getting this happening.
Heck yeah, we sure do take a lot of pride in our ability to find awesome entrepreneurs like yourself. So I so appreciate that on behalf of everyone who works behind the scenes. But let's get into your background. I love that you have really transitioned into making a positive change in ways that you want to and opportunities that you see to impact the world. So take us beyond the bio. How'd you start doing all these cool things that you're up to with Kudo?
Honestly, it's, when you look at culture, when you look at where things are at, we have so many different ways to communicate, countless ways. We have text messages and then all these different companies, and yet we miss real community, real communication. It's all caught into what is easy to scroll. It's all based on just catching people's attention for short periods of time and not getting real value out of it. And so over time, it kind of evolved into this thing of, hey, let's try to counteract the negative aspects of current social media and create kind of a community hub. And so that's kind of what was born when Kudo became its thing. In the early days of before it was actually built, was just studying the current social media and looking at people's attention spans that 12 seconds is a long time. And now it's 2 to 3 seconds. So it's trying to create a place where people find value and then interact with each other thoughtfully. So yeah, that's kind of the big goal, is just thoughtful interaction and getting people's viewpoints or perspectives on, hey, why do you believe what you do? What do you think on this topic? And feel free to share it in a safe environment where it's not just going to be a bunch of hate replies, but it's going to be like, hey, I disagree, or I, agree, but it's based on this, or this is where this is what made it, and how it's formed.
Josiah, I love that overview, especially because, gosh, you are preaching to the choir here. As someone who produces 30 to 40 minute pieces of content, I always wish our generation had a much longer attention span. And I'm so grateful for all of our podcast listeners. I always argue that podcasting is that rare platform where people are still consuming longer form content. And I'm so appreciative of that. But I also love the fact that you called it out. You're not just talking about kind of the downsides of social media. You've pinpointed at that attention span problem that people are running into. It's too easy to just scroll through things and not even think about what we're consuming. But talk to me about this. I love getting into the mind of, you didn't just identify the problem, but you want to be part of the solution with what you're doing with Kudo. What made you actually take that leap?
Man, that's an interesting question. So, Kudo itself, as funny as it sounds, it started out as a fitness company. like day one, go and build a fitness company, right? But then as I kept brainstorming, it's like, no, it's the mindset that I'm after. Me personally, like working out's great, but I do it for the mindset that it gives you, and getting fit is a subsidiary product of it. And so when I looked at the business side of building something, I'm like, we don't need more fitness stuff. The bigger problem is like our minds. That's what we're all trying to improve, is like our mindsets. And then breaking it down even more, it's what is the most vital thing that we do every day to portray our ideas or portray who we are, and it's how we communicate. It comes down to communication. So after breaking it down, and then just seeing the need, especially with TikTok and all that, it's just like, we need a platform that is strictly thoughtful dialogue. And that's kind of what it's devolved into now. And so obviously fitness company, that vanished really quick. And then it turned into, hey, let's build something that's focused on how we communicate and trying to, it's still a work in progress. It's going to change so much, but as you learn more about people, studying what people find community, what they value in community, how they decipher what it is. And so as we try to study those different areas, that's kind of dictating how the direction of the platform goes, and how we're trying to make small pivots every so often to try to make it better and more community oriented, to find out, what's you,
Yeah, and I think that's powerful insights into the way that your mind works, because you said the word pivot, and I think that's what all of life in an entrepreneurial journey looks like. Is I love that it was born first and foremost with the vision of being a fitness company before you realized, wait, there's something that I'm more passionate about and that can serve people at an even deeper and more meaningful level. And I think that's powerful for you to be able to follow that pivot. So huge kudos to you in that. But I want to hone in on two words that you said that I think are so powerful, and they're obviously at the core of what Kudo is you said thoughtful dialogue. Josiah, I'm going to argue that our society, we're having less dialogue than ever before. We live in such a polarizing world, and as someone who talks for a living, I am firmly of the belief that we do need to have more conversations. We need more dialogue, and the fact that you're taking it one step further into thoughtful dialogue, what does that look like? Why is it those two words? Because they pop up so much when I did my research ahead of today's episode. What is thoughtful dialogue, and how do you go about facilitating that?
That is such a key thing. And, to narrow it down to those words, and like you're pointing at, there is a much bigger thought process behind it, because there is dialogue everywhere. You go to Reddit, there's dialogue. You go to Facebook, all these programs, there's dialogue, there's conversation. But the key problem is it's not thoughtful. It's just, spraying out ideas or spraying this, because we're not looking to know, we're not looking for, hey, how's your day going? Or how's this? We're looking for, what's your opinion on this? So the goal is that people, it's hard trying to create it from the beginning, but it's that people will share, hey, this is a current problem, right? So this is my thought process on this problem. They break it down. And hopefully, and I would love it if more people did it, is cite like, hey, these are sources that have helped form my opinion. And so now you're supporting where you're coming from, or you use like background. Hey, this is what's formed my opinion over these experiences. And that's kind of what thoughtful dialogue, it's not just mindlessly throwing a quick little tweet or a quick little reply out there, but it's thinking through like, hey, why do I believe this? And the dialogue is so important, because as we have dialogue, we either find where we're wrong on some ideas, or we're finding, what, I think I'm more right than I was even realizing when I first had it. And then you might talk to somebody who have one perspective that they're talking from, and then you realize, wait, you know what, their perspective is actually right. I need to look more into it. And that it's not going in with this closed mind and completely open mind, because you need to have what you believe too, because that's important too at the end of the day. and to go in and be like, hey, this is why I believe, and this person talks about what they believe, and be okay to believe differently too, because we can't have all me, we can't have all, Brian, and that's the great thing. But we have to get to the core where, hey, let's talk about why we believe this way without getting destroyed on social media for it.
Yes, amen to that, Josiah. I so appreciate your message there, and I think it's such an important one. And I think it also reveals itself in your work, where I want to pick on this word too, because it seems like you're so intentional about your words that you describe Kudo as a community hub. It's not a platform. It's not a social media platform. It's not an app. Talk to us about community hub, because at the root of us listening to each other, at the root of us being open to other ideas, is this notion that we are a community and that we are together in this journey of life and business and all the other things that we go on. Talk to me about Community Hub and why it is that you've positioned Kudo in that way.
Yeah. So you have social media, and people go there for their fast stimulations. Community is so much different. It's where people get to know a little bit about you. It's where it's a more closed, tight-knit group. Everybody is not your community, no matter where you go, and some communities aren't for you. Whereas social media is it's for everybody. You post on there, you get your stimulant rush when you get your likes or comments, but that's about as deep as it goes most of the time. And so we're really focusing on Community Hub because people need community. When I think of, my circle, there's a few people that are really tight where I go to for advice, and that's community. And so trying to build that in a virtual world is very tough, but it's very needed because we all don't have the time to spend hours each week doing it in person. So this gives you, and plus this will grow your community if you do it right, if you're actually out here engaging with people. And so the goal is, hey, you're going to see people's different perspectives, and it's over time you're going to start to engage and befriend the ones that you really are engaging with and seeing eye to eye, and maybe not even seeing eye to eye, but it's getting people where they can disagree but respectfully agree and respect each other's opinions, and build that community of, hey, we know when we talk, we're going to talk about deep topics. We're going, it's going to build that bond.
Yeah, I love that, Josiah, especially because I would argue that's where our bonds come from. Even just think about you and I before we hit record here today. We were talking about soccer before we talked about other things. And I think it's these common interests that are so powerful to us connecting to each other, not just through, a video call over the internet, but us actually connecting as individuals. I think it's so powerful. And I want to call out, because I think it's fascinating that you've started Kudo while you're still also pursuing studies in economics at Penn State University. Talk to us about that, because I feel like I'm fortunate in that I started my first business back in 2008. It was the summer after my freshman year of school, and that was a part of my life where I was exposed to conversation, sitting in college classrooms. It broadened my horizons. Talk to us about what you've seen, because I know academia is a little bit different than when I was still in school. And so with that in mind, how do you complement what you're doing in the classroom, whether it's virtual or in person, with what you want to implement in Kudo? Because all of us as adults, we're starving for kind of those academic environments. We all love our brains being tickled, and it sounds like that mental stimulation is at the core of what you believe in Kudo.
It's interesting you say that, the classroom, and you're referring to it as a more social type of stimulating environment. And it's interesting because about 2 months ago, when I was at Penn State for their startup week, a lot of professors came to me saying, this is so interesting what you're building because we lack community here. Like, because of COVID, it's very hard to find community. And I was blown away by that thought process, because up until that point, I had the viewpoint of, school, academia, this is the world of we communicate and all this, and for them to say that. So honestly, that's something I'm still processing, because I was like, this is so much more community than outside of here, but yet they were saying there's a real need for community in the school, in the university. So that's kind of what I found. I can't say it's solved yet, but it's interesting. One of the things that we're pivoting to, I love the word pivot, but we're making adjustments to is hosting live events. So like Kudo is not just a real person, a virtual thing, but seeing people in real life, hosting events where it's kind of like a reverse panel where, hey, instead of a panel that says the answers to questions, we're going to ask questions and let the people that come share what they view on that topic. And hopefully through that, people will start connecting more in person. Because that's the thing, Kudo, I don't want it to just be this virtual thing. That's why we're trying to implement like video and things like that over the next month or so. Because keyboards is great, virtual video is great, but there's nothing like in person. I love over a cup of coffee. Like that to me is where real connections. You can't beat that.
Yes, I totally agree. I know that generations long before us have always talked about breaking bread. To me, being able to go to a coffee shop and just sitting there with no agenda, no cell phones, that's the one thing I always ask for. That is such a powerful mechanism for connection. And I love the fact that you painted the contrast between colleges, because it's kind of the assumption that I had, having been out of academia for so long, is that COVID changed the world. And I remember it was so easy freshman year. Just leave your door propped open and anyone will walk in to play FIFA and you can make friends so easily. But times have changed in academia. They've changed societally. And I think it makes your business even more important. And that's why I also want to ask about your military background. Obviously, you served in both the Army and the Navy. And I would imagine that there's so much discipline. There's so many other skills and traits that you developed along the way there. Talk to us about some of those things and how they've set you up for success as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, honestly, discipline. I think that is the key word. That is the one thing I look for anybody that I want to work with or bring on, is discipline. It's so hard to find people with that, but that is a make or break thing in the world of building something or building a business or just building your character as a person. It's the thing that's going to get you up on the days where you don't want to. And as you know, you started plenty of businesses. It's not fun most of the time. It's really just a grind. And that takes pure discipline to be able to go through the bad days and still build and do what you're supposed to. And military definitely helped with that, because when things aren't going right in your personal life, you still have to go there, put on the front, take care of your junior guys and get the job done. And it's very big in the military is discipline. That's, I don't have to tell anybody that knew, but it's the key to building anything. And then I think the military also helped me experiment with more just being vulnerable, being willing to take risks. And so when you get out in the business world, it's a very vulnerable experience. You're always concerned, I build this. If it doesn't work out, what's the crowd going to say? And you have to get to the point where you don't care you don't care about the noise, and you have to really hone in on who you listen to. And then you got to be vulnerable. You got to be willing to be like, you know what? I'm all in. I'm going to take the risk. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. I'll build something new. I'll try something new. But I think discipline over time helps you to create that space where you're willing to be vulnerable. And once you're being willing to be vulnerable, you're going to fail. It's whatever you build first is going to be ugly. And it's great.
Yeah, I love that perspective, Josiah. This is the real stuff. I don't think we talk about it open enough within the world of entrepreneurship, is that these are the building blocks. This mindset that you're sharing with us, it's the only thing that's going to get any of us through this journey, because like you said, I have certainly had my pivots along the years, and it's that resilience and discipline that comes along with it. However, I'm going to say that discipline is much easier to talk about than it is to actually do. And I always share with people, you can't just do things when you're motivated. I'm a big fan of motivational content. I watch a lot of motivational YouTube videos. I listen to different podcasts, and those get me excited. But am I going to do things even on the days that I don't feel like it? So talk to us about I don't know if it's strategies that you have that keep you disciplined. I don't know if there's quotes that you think of or what, but on those days where Josiah Kowles doesn't feel like doing it, what helps you actually show up and do the work?
So it's funny. It's funny. I know I started this, I think before the military, was Instagram. I have this little collection, this saved list on there, which has grown to be quite large over the last few years, of just reels of people just talking about like the mindset, people talking about like business people who've been there, who've failed, who've done it. You hear a guy who's built like 8 businesses, 7 of them failed, or you know, it just took them years or 4 years without a customer on their first business. And then, or like last week, it was Mark Zuckerberg saying that if he knew how to build a community, if he knew how to build Facebook, he would have never built it. And it's just stuff like that. And listening to him talk about just the ugliness of, you know, Facebook 1.0, and that's the stuff that, you know, motivates me. One of my go-to is just hilarious is always, you know, the Conor McGregor movie, you know, when he's fighting Jose Aldo. For some odd reason, that's one of the most motivating things in my life, because you have this nobody coming up to fight this unbeaten guy, and just the mindset to go in and do it. And that's the stuff. I mean, it's a crazy playlist of little reels on there, but like that's probably my biggest tool. The other one is just like, you know, it's one of the things I tell myself. Somebody wants this harder than I do. You know, somebody's going to build this if I don't. And when I'm sleeping, they're going to be out there stealing my dream. So like that's one of the biggest ones. And just last week, this one still is, you know, it's my latest save is Dennis Cook. He started Songhouse, and he was like, people die with some days in their pocket. And that's really sticking with me, because it's so true. Like if I don't start today, if I don't work today, my dream's going to die in my pocket, and I would have never had a chance at achieving it, let alone have a chance at failing at it, because I failed on default for not trying. And yeah, it's just quotes like that. Like I have quotes on my computer screen. Honestly, quotes and reels that are motivational are big, but like at the end of the day, motivation's fake. That's why you can watch a video and suddenly you're motivated, but just as fast as you watch the video, it disappears. So at the end, it's big to either build a business or whatever it is, to find something that's really you at its core and pursue it. Because if it's not going to be real. If I just built Kudo based off of reels and motivational quotes, it wouldn't be happening. I would have given up way before I ever built anything. And so it has to be whatever you believe, or whatever is giving you fulfillment at the end of the day. Like whatever, when you look back on your life, that's the thing that's going to make you feel like you added value.
Yeah, and that's the heavy stuff. I love thinking about that stuff, because it kind of is, someone might say, well, oh my gosh, if I die with some regrets or some days in my pockets, that's a sad ending, but that should be the fuel that pushes us on. And I love the fact that you have so transparently really shown us here in a meaningful way, which I expect because it's part of the ethos of Kudos. You've shared that with us because these are the real conversations that we need to be having more of. And so I love hearing about your perspective perspective on all things mindset and growth and all of those things and the pivots that come along with it. But I also love in these conversations is connecting with you, not only in this topic, but entrepreneur to entrepreneur, because I love the fact that you're so committed to growing Kudo. And I see it on your LinkedIn. You're really putting it everywhere. You want the world to know what you're building, which is why we're so excited that you're here sharing it with us today. What's that long-term vision? Obviously, there's so many different business models, and you talk about going to Startup Week. There's a lot of directions to take it in, but where's your mind go? Because it is important work and it is meaningful work. What's the business behind it that you're right now working towards?
The big vision is in-person events, like in-person events that start this and then you continue it online. And that would be the ideal thing, because there's nothing like getting a person in a room full of people and they share, hey, this is what I believe, or this is what I think. It can be anything. It can be, it would be great to be able to talk on a political topic, as much as that would be scared. People would be scared to engage in that just because of climates, to anything on, academic topic or, technological topic or whatever. It's just current topics, current things that we see in our culture. And let's have a real life conversation where anybody can be involved, but they just need to be thoughtful. And it's not going to be attractive to somebody who just wants to go out there and just scream ideas without really caring about them. It's attractive to somebody who has a passion, who wants to create change, who wants to be like, hey, here's the problem, here's the solution. Let's try to get to that solution, or and I think there's going to be a lot of good that comes out of it. And that's the big long term, is just let's get people in person talking about this, which is a huge challenge, and then continue it online, and then give them the option of, hey, let's do group video calls about this too, and let's build some change in how we communicate. I think it's the big end goal. And I know whatever Kudo is today, in a year from now, it might not look like this. I'm sure there's plenty more changes. And so honestly, I can't really predict the future. It's really just seeing what works and what doesn't, and what are people liking? What do they want the need? What do they want the solution to be? Because that's the big thing, is trying to listen to the users really hard is the important one.
Yeah, and I think that's really powerful insight into your mindset. And I think it's such an open and honest admission from your part that I think would benefit all of us in our own mindsets towards our businesses. Is you don't know what Kudo is going to look like a year from now. And that's perfectly okay. You're going to figure it out along the way by that last part of listening to your users and thinking about the role that Kudo can fulfill in facilitating those public conversations. So I love that real life glimpse into your own entrepreneurial and CEO's mindset. And I want to ask you this along those lines, because obviously Kudo has a part to play in structuring this and facilitating this thoughtful dialogue. I know that you're on the hunt for interns, which I'm so excited about. So listeners, if any of you want to work with Josiah on Kudo, here's your opportunity. But with that in mind, what is the role that Kudo itself plays in this part? Is it, you structure these conversations, you initiate the topics of the conversations? How do you, obviously you're talking about in-person events, so there's planning that goes into that, there's logistics and execution of that. But Josiah, talk to us about the gap that Kudo plays, because obviously it takes some resources to make this stuff happen, because it's not happening enough organically.
Yeah, so our current way things are currently is people are writing articles. We have thought leaders who write articles, and then we're pulling topics from those articles. And then we have like a Kickstarter where it's like pulling 3 points to get people's minds engaged. You'll be like, hey, so why is your perspective this way? Like, what's it based off of? And so I think we're taking, this is actually a next month change. So we're getting away from that, believe it or not. And we're going to make it more open for anybody, not just thought leaders, to be engaging. We're going to make the content a little bit shorter. It's not article based anymore. And we're trying really hard to not shut people down, because you can't. So the thing is, I mean, there's no shutting down of conversations, right? But the big thing we really want to make sure we steer away from is that people, are going to be blasting, putting people on blast. Because like, you want disagreements, but you don't want to, have a controlled communication flow. So like, that's a major challenge at this point. While we're small, it's just a lot of heavy moderation, like relying on moderators. So it's not like fancy. Of course, eventually it'll be, over time, the goal is have AI implement some stuff. So it just, scans some things, it'll report like things that people flag, to make sure, because it's very open with people flagging. It's really reliant on users flagging, like, hey, this person's, just saying a bunch of cuss words or something to that effect, it's reliant more on the users to flag things at this point, and then moderators will look over it. But over time, put a new speed bump, people flag it, AI will scan, do its thing, and then whatever, we'll check on that. So it just, because, people can post 1 million times in a day, and to have the time to be able to scan through all that is, it's ridiculous. So at this point, while it's small, it's just relying on the users. And the great thing about being small is you can really hone in on who the users are. Like I always tell people, I mean, the only difference between LinkedIn and Facebook in its beginning stage was who they had the audience be, because the audience was so small. They trained the audience to not post Facebook content. And so that's a big thing we've worked on, is while the audience is small, we really want to help shape them, because they really control the direction of where it goes, because new users see how they post. So they're going to post a similar format. They're going to create a similar format. And so going forward, I mean, our format, whatever it is today, it's going to change a lot in the next month, because we have a lot of new upgrades and updates we're doing. And so it's going to be a challenge over the next month, because content's a lot longer now. So to shorten it, but it's going to be way more engaging, which is really exciting. It's going to bring out more of that community vibe, because I think that's what we were missing, was by having thought leaders, we were missing out on every person's voice. They only got it on the topic that we hosted. And so that's the big change coming.
Yeah, and I think that's super valuable insights, because what you're talking about here is, again, it comes back to being responsive, being flexible. You are looking at the realities of your user base. And I think that one thing I want to highlight that you shared is it is an asset. It is valuable to you to be small. All of us start out small in all of our different industries, products, services, whatever it is that we do. And the fact that you're viewing that as your superpower right here out of the gates, learn as much as you can while you're small, with that view of growing, and the fact that you're doing things that aren't scaling. You talk about AI down the line. It's important. The feedback you're gaining today through doing manual work, relying on users, that's only going to make Kudo a stronger platform in the future. So I love hearing your real life insights there. Josiah, I have no idea which direction you're going to take this last question in, because it sounds like you have so many intentional thoughts about growth, about discipline, about the way that you are strategically step by step growing and pivoting your own business. But what's your best piece of advice? What's that one takeaway for listeners, knowing that they are entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs all over the world at different stages of their entrepreneurial journey? What's that one thing that you want to leave them with in today's episode?
Do it. Whatever it is, whatever that thing that's in your mind, like if it's where starting a business, or you have this new piece of data, but that you want to make the change with, but you're hesitant. Honestly, if you already have the business, throw out to the users, ask them. If you don't have a business, do it today. If you don't start today, the odds of it starting is just not going to happen. You got to take that first step. Like for me, like the first thing for Kudo I did, which is crazy because I was still in the military. This was like 3.5, 4 years ago. And I created the logo. I created the name, I created the logo. And for years afterwards, I just brainstormed on it. And that original logo obviously is no longer exists, but it was something, I did something. Whatever your first step is, it's going to be a bad step probably. It's going to be, it's probably not going to be what you use, but just take it. So it evolves into something because you got to take that first step. Like you were saying, you started small. I'm starting small, but you still got to do it. You don't wake up and have meta the next day.
Yeah, I love that, especially that emphasis you put on that first step. It reminds me, one of my favorite quotes of all time is that Martin Luther King Jr. quote where he said, "You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step." And that is powerful advice from you, Josiah. I love hearing the way that you think about your business, the way you think about growth, and most importantly, I love how deeply impactful and meaningful the work is that you're doing at Kudo. So I'm excited to follow your own growth journey. For listeners who want to follow along, or if they want to get involved, drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Yeah, honestly, LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to connect with me personally, is just LinkedIn. I have a love-hate relationship with it, but it's the best place to connect. Or visit Kudo.plus. I mean, see what we're about. I mean, it's going to be tough to get in without an account, so you got to go through that process, but it's great. I mean, yeah.
Yes, listeners, you already know the drill. We are making it as easy as possible for you to find Kudo online. Josiah just told you that link. It's Kudo.plus. We're also linking to Josiah's personal LinkedIn down below in the show notes, wherever it is that you're tuning in to today's episode. And I also love right on Kudo's website, the first button you're going to see is right in line with what you heard in today's episode. It doesn't say sign up. It doesn't say anything else. It says take the first step. And I think that's such an appropriate way towards viewing the work that it is that you're doing, and especially your entrepreneurial mindset as well. So Josiah, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Honestly, super happy and excited to be a part of this. Thank you so much.